friends, welcome to our YouTube channel Nagaraj Academy. The main aim of this lecture is to discuss about the TS Genco 2015 electrical solutions in a very detailed manner. And if you like the content of our channel, then please do like, share and subscribe our YouTube channel, and don't forget to press the bell icon button so whenever we upload a new video, the direct notifications comes to mobile. If any improvements needed in our video lectures, then please do comment in the comment section. We will definitely include all those improvements in the coming lectures. So why to waste more time? So let's get started. So now we are going to solve the question number 21. See the question here. In hydroelectric power plants, so basically in the hydroelectric power plants, in the all these options they are comparing the operating cost and the initial cost. So what are the four options? Option C, operating cost is very low, but the initial cost is very high. So we will discuss why the operating cost is very low and also the initial cost is why it is very high. We will discuss now. So basically in the hydro power plants, the initial cost means here we have to construct the dam and also we have to construct the reservoir. So therefore lot of amount of money it is going to expend on this dam and also in the reservoir. So therefore high amount of expenditure we have to go for the initial cost. So therefore initial cost will be very high to make the dam and also the reservoir. But if you come to the operating cost, here there is no fuel, means we are going to store the water in the dam. So that what is going to happen? So water is not a fuel, so therefore you don't have to buy this one. So therefore now this water is not a fuel, so because of this is a low cost. So therefore the operating cost is very low. So we can tell that from hydro power plants the initial cost is very high because we have to construct the dam and also reservoir, but the operating cost is very low because here we are not going to use any fuel, but we are going to use only the water. So therefore we can say the initial cost is very high and the operating cost is very low for the hydro power plants. So now we are going to solve the 22nd question. See the question here. The incremental fuel cost for two generating units given by. These are the two generating units incremental fuel cost, which is dF by dP. So therefore now where Pg1 and Pg2 are the real powers generated by the units. So Pg1 and Pg2 are the real powers generated by the corresponding units. So now the economic allocation for a total load of 250 megawatt neglecting transmission loss is given by. So basically suppose if the load is 250 megawatt, then what are the economic allocation, means minimum cost. So therefore what is the amount of power generation by the unit 1 and unit 2 we need to figure out. So therefore overall cost will be very low. So out of the four options, not even one option is correct, means all the options are wrong. So now we will discuss what is the correct solution of this question. So in the question they are given the incremental fuel cost for the generating one, which is IC1 is equal to 25 plus 0.2 Pg1, and the incremental fuel cost for the generating unit 2, which is IC2 is equal to 32 plus 0.2 Pg2. So incremental fuel cost means dF1 by dPg1, and also for the second case dF2 by dPg2. It indicates that rate of change of fuel cost with respect to the generating power, and also the amount of power generation by the two units is equal to the power consumed by the load and also some amount of losses. But here there are only two units to generate the power, so therefore Pg1 and Pg2 plus Pg1 plus Pg2 is equal to the load is going to consume a power of 250 megawatt, and in the question they are also given that the losses are consumed to be 0, means lossless, so therefore plus 0. So if you equate this one, it is the first equation. And also for economic operation means for minimum cost always the incremental fuel cost of the generating one has to be equal to the incremental fuel cost of the generating 2, then only we can say the overall amount of money which is required will be very less in order to meet the demand. So therefore here IC1 should be equal to IC2 for economic allocation. So therefore we have to equate these two equations. So by using this, if you rearrange this one, we are going to get the another equation, which is the second equation. So we got two equations with two unknown variables, and if you solve these ones, we are going to get the Pg1 is equal to 142.5 megawatt and Pg2 is equal to 107.5 megawatt. This is the correct solution of this question, means the unit 1 should generate a power of 142.5 megawatt and the unit 2 should generate a power of 107.5 megawatt is the correct solution of this question. Then there will be an economic allocation, means overall cost will be very minimum. So now we are going to solve the 23rd question. See the question here. The most appropriate operating speed in RPM of generators used in the thermal, nuclear and hydro power plants would respectively. So in this question they are asking what is the appropriate speed in generators in the thermal, hydro, means nuclear and hydro, we need to figure out. So what are the four options? Option B is the correct solution of this question, which is 3000, 3000 and 300. So now we'll discuss why it is the correct solution of this question. So now we'll discuss thermal, nuclear and hydro. Basically in the thermal and nuclear, in generating here, in this generating station or generating power plants, what is going to happen is here we are going to use a synchronous generator. In the synchronous generator, we are going to use the cylindrical rotor. So basically for the synchronous generator, we are going to use the cylindrical rotor in the thermal power plant and also in the nuclear power plant. Cylindrical rotor means here the length will be very huge value. So the length will be very huge value of this rotor and the area will be very low. So we can say L is very high and the area of this rotor is very small. So because of this, the number of poles we can get is very low. So therefore the speed and the poles are inversely proportional. So therefore if the poles decreases means the speed will increase. So only 2 poles we can generate. So the poles is a even number, means starting from 2, 4, 6 goes on up to practically we can implement only 20 poles. This is the highest range. So the minimum value is 2 and the maximum value is 20. So practically we can make only 20 poles up to now. So therefore if you see carefully here, so the relation is Ns is equal to 120F by P. So for a synchronous generator, the rotating speed Nr and also the synchronous speed is same. So therefore is equal to Nr. So here I want to make here the number of poles are very low. So minimum number of poles are only 2. See, whenever the denominator is very low, indicates this will be very huge value. So therefore I want to generate a frequency of 50 Hz. So standard the current and the voltage in India, we are going to get a frequency of 50 Hz. So 50. So 120 into 50 by the number of minimum poles is 2. So if you solve this one, we are going to get 3000 RPM. So 3000 RPM we can rotate this rotor, cylindrical rotor in a synchronous generator for both thermal and nuclear. The maximum speed we can generate is only up to 3000 RPM, not more than this one, because the minimum number of poles are only 2 we can generate, because the rotor itself indicates we can generate only 2 poles. So this is for the thermal and the nuclear power plant. But now when compared to the hydro power plant, here also we are going to use the synchronous generator in order to generate the power. But here we are going to use the rotor is silent pole rotor. So the silent pole rotor will be in this manner. So its length will be very small and area will be very huge value. So the length of the rotor will be very small, but the area will be very high. So these are the poles. These are the poles we can generate on this silent pole rotor. So because of this, I have already told you the number of poles minimum can be 2 and the maximum can be very high. So we can make highest number of poles. I have already told you whenever the poles increases, the speed is going to decrease because they are inversely proportional. So therefore Ns is equal to Nr, which is 120F by P. So I can generate a highest number of poles. If the denominator is maximum, indicates the overall value will become minimum. So I want to generate a frequency of 50 Hz. So therefore in order to generate a frequency of 50 Hz, what is the rotating speed you should require? So therefore 120 into F is 50. The maximum number of poles you can generate is only 20. So if you solve this one, we are going to get 300 RPM. So therefore in the thermal and nuclear power plant, if you rotate the rotor in the synchronous generator at a speed of 3000 RPM, then we can get a frequency of 50 Hz supply. And also for hydro power plant in the synchronous generator, because of we are going to use a silent pole rotor, and if you rotate at a speed of 300 RPM, then we can generate a frequency of 50 Hz. This is the true meaning of this one. The only thing you have to remember is very simple. For a thermal and nuclear power plant, the synchronous generator is going to use the cylindrical rotor, and for the hydro power plant, we are going to use the silent pole rotor. So here cylindrical rotor means the length will be very high, so area will be very small, and the number of poles will be very minimum, which is 2. So the poles range can only vary from 2 to 20. 20 is the maximum value and 2 is the minimum value we can generate for a poles. So based on this here, as the poles is very less, so I want to generate a frequency of 50 hertz. So at what speed I should rotate the prime mover, which is 120 into F by P. So F is 50 and the P is the minimum value, which is 2. So if you solve this one, we are going to get 3000 RPM. In the same manner, you go for this one also. So with the help of 300 RPM, we can generate a frequency of 50 hertz, because here the length is very small and the area is very large. So the number of poles also we can make will be very high, up to maximum. So speed and the poles are inversely proportional. So based on this, the speed will be very slow here. So for this hydro power plant, you have to rotate the prime mover at a low speed when compared to the thermal and the nuclear. So now we are going to solve the 24th question. See the question here. A 400 volt 50 hertz 3-phase induction motor rotates at 1440 RPM on full load. The motor is wound for. So basically here on full load, the induction motor is going to rotate at a speed of 1440 RPM. So now we have to find this motor is wound for how many number of poles. So what are the four options? Option B, 4 poles is the correct solution of this question. So let's solve this numerical. So basically this induction motor is loaded at the full load. So at the full load condition, the motor is going to rotate at a speed of 1440 RPM. So and also the frequency of the supply, which is 50 hertz. And here based on this data, we have to find what is the number of poles this machine was wound for. So P we need to figure out. The basic relation is NS, the synchronous speed, is equal to 120 F by P. The synchronous speed indicates the speed at which the rotating magnetic field, what is the speed at which it is rotating. So therefore here NS is called as the synchronous speed, means the speed at which the rotating magnetic field is rotating. So therefore here always NS is greater than NR, means the synchronous speed is very high, means it is somewhat greater than the NR, but not a huge value. So therefore NR is somewhat lesser than the synchronous speed. It is somewhat approximately lesser, but not a huge variation is not there. Only a small variation between the rotating speed and also of the motor and the synchronous speed. So here there are 4 options. So option A, they are given P is equal to 2. The number of poles is 2. So I am going to substitute here. NS is equal to 120 into F is 50 and the P is 2. So I am going to get 3000 RPM. Yes, 3000 RPM is greater than the 1440 RPM. Synchronous speed is greater than the rotating speed of the rotor. But there is a huge variation. 3000 is a very huge value when compared to 1440. So therefore this is not a solution. And if you take the option B, when P is equal to 4, substitute here, NH is equal to 120 F by P. So 120 into F is 50 and the P is 4. Now you are going to get 1500 RPM. See, the synchronous speed is greater than the rotating speed. Yes, but the variation is a very low value. So therefore B is the correct solution. And if you take the option C, P is equal to 6. So substitute here, NH is equal to 120 F by P, where F is 50 and P is 6. So if you solve, we are going to get 1000 RPM. Here NS is lesser than the NR, but condition itself is wrong. So therefore this is not the solution. And option D, P is equal to 8, substitute here, we are going to get NS is equal to 120 F by P. If P is 8 and F is 50, if you solve this one, we are going to get 750 RPM. 750 itself is very lower than the rotating speed of the rotor. So therefore this is also wrong solution. So therefore we can see that the synchronous speed is greater than the rotor speed, but it has to be a very small variation, means the difference of speed must be a very small variation, not a huge value. So therefore because of this small variation, we can say because of this only the flux is going to induced in this, the flux is going to intersect the rotor. So therefore we are going to get a speed is rotating. So now we are going to solve the 25th question. See the question here. The slip of 400 volt 3-phase 4-pole induction motor when rotating at 1440 RPM is. So basically here the frequency is 50 hertz. They have not given like this, and also they are given that the induction motor is rotating at 1440 RPM. By default the frequency is nothing but 15 hertz in India. So therefore now based on this, they also given a 4-pole induction motor. So based on this data, we have to find what is the slip. We have to figure out. So what are the 4 options? Option C, 4% is the correct solution of this question. So let's solve this numerical. So basically in this question they have said that the induction motor is rotating at a speed of 1440 RPM, and also they are given the number of poles is 4. So based on this, we have to find what is the percentage of slip. So by default in India, we are going to get a frequency of supply of voltage and current which is 50 hertz. So therefore I know the basic equation, which is synchronous speed is equal to 120 F by P. So F value is 50 and P is poles. which is 4. So if you solve this one, we are going to get 1500 rpm, where ns is called as a synchronous speed, means the rate means the speed at which the field is rotating. So therefore here percentage of slip is equal to ns minus nr by ns into 100. ns is 1500 rpm and nr is 1440 rpm by ns is 1500 into 100. All this one we are going to get 4%. So the percentage of slip is equal to 4% is the correct solution of this question. So percentage of slip is equal to ns minus nr by ns into 100. So by using this formula, we are going to get the percentage of slip, which is 4%, is the correct solution of this question. So now we are going to solve the 26th question. See the question here. Torque developed by a 3-phase 400 volt induction motor is 100 Newton meter. If the applied voltage is reduced to 200 volt, the developed torque will be. So basically for this induction motor, when the voltage is 400 volt, the torque developed in this motor is 100 Newton meter. But here, if the applied voltage is 200 volt, so what is the developed torque will be? So for 400 volt we got a torque of 100 Newton meter. So for 200 volt, how much is the torque? So out of the 4 options, option B 25 Newton meter is the correct solution of this question. So let's solve this numerical. So the torque developed in an induction motor is T is equal to 180 by 2 by ns into s into et square by r2 square plus s x2 whole square. This is the torque developed in an induction motor. So therefore the torque and the voltage, which is directly proportional to square of the voltage. So torque is directly proportional to square of the voltage. So here we can say T1 by T2 is equal to V1 by V2 whole square. So 100 Newton meter is developed for a voltage of 400 volt. So I want to find what is the torque T2 for a voltage of 200 volts. So if you solve this equation, we are going to get the torque developed will be 25 Newton meter. So therefore for 400 volt in induction motor, the torque developed is 100 Newton meter. So therefore for 200 volt, the torque developed is only 25 Newton meter. This is the correct solution of this question. So the torque and the voltage relation is torque is directly proportional to square of the supply voltage. So now we are going to solve the 27th question. See the question here. The storage battery generally used in electric power station is. So basically the storage battery generally used in electric power station. So what is the type of battery we are going to use in power stations? So out of the 4 options, option B lead acid battery is preferred. So now we'll discuss why only lead acid battery is preferred in electrical power stations for storing of the power. So let's discuss something more about this one. So now we'll discuss something important points about this lead acid battery. So this is a circuit diagram of this lead acid battery. So basically it is going to contain a solution of electrolyte solution of H2SO4 sulfuric acid, and here this is a positive plate and this is a negative plate. So with the help of this one, we are going to connect to a load. So therefore this load is going to receive the current with the help of this battery. So this positive is called as a anode plate and this negative is said to be a cathode plate. So therefore current is going to flow from the anode to cathode. So basically this anode plate is made by lead oxide, which is PbO2 is called as the lead oxide, and this cathode plate is made by lead, which is called as the Pb. So basically this one lead acid battery cell, it is going to generate a voltage of, the voltage which is going to generate by this lead acid battery is only 2 volt. So basically you have to use lot of number of this lead acid battery. So therefore if you connect all this in series, the voltage rating will be increased. So therefore 1 unit cell of lead acid battery is going to generate a voltage of 2 volt, and it is basically a rechargeable battery, means you can charge and recharge. So therefore it is basically a rechargeable battery, and it was invented in 1859 by a French physicist. His name is Gaston Planté. So Gaston Planté is a scientist who has invented, is a physicist, is a person who has invented this lead acid battery. So basically some important points we will discuss now. Here, steady currents over large time period. So over large time period we can produce a constant currents, and also in order to make this one we need a very simple technology, and also manufacturing cost of this lead acid battery is very simple when compared to remaining all other batteries. So this is a very important reason. So manufacturing cost of this lead acid battery is very low when compared to remaining all other battery cost, and also here good discharging characteristics. So if you connect any load, the amount of discharging of the current through this load has a very good characteristics, and also here this was used as a power backup storage in cell phone towers and also in the power system. If suddenly the power is gone, then these storage batteries are going to, these lead acid batteries are going to store the power, and it is going to give the power at any fault condition. So therefore we can say these are are used as the power backup storages in the cell phone towers, and also in the power system. So basically this is going to store the power. If any fault is going to occur in power system, then this is going to supply the power up to that time. So therefore the load is going to receive the continuous power. So we can say these are used as a power backup storage in the cell phone towers and also in the power system. So these are some of the important facts of this lead acid battery. So because of these reasons, we can say this lead acid battery is used as a backup storage in the power system. So now we are going to solve the 28th question. See the question here. The load on the power plant with respect to time for 24 hours are given as. So basically here, with respect to time period, they are given different amount of loads on the power station. So therefore now the load factor of the power station is as. So based on this, we have to find what is the load factor of this power plant. We need to figure out. So what are the four options? Option B, 0.71 is the correct solution of this question. So let's solve this numerical. Basically on a power system station, for this amount of time duration in hours, the amount of power which is consumed from the station they have given here. So now I am going to plot this diagram in this graph. So therefore here, if you see carefully, from 0 to 6 hour, the demand is 40. So 0 to 6, the demand is 40 megawatt. And from 6 to 8, the demand is 50. So 6 to 8, the demand is 50 megawatt. And from 8 to 12 hours, the demand is 60 watt. So 8 to 12, the demand is 60 watt. And from 12 to 14, the demand is 50. So 12 to 14, the demand is 50 megawatt. And from 14 to 18 hours, the demand is 70 megawatt. And from 18 to 22, the demand is 80 megawatt. And also from 22 to 24, the demand is 40 megawatt. So I have drawn a plot of this diagram. So with respect to time, the y-axis is power in terms of the megawatt and the x-axis is time in terms of hour. So basically I want to find what is the load factor. Load factor is nothing but the ratio of the average power and the maximum power. So the maximum power which is demand on this power station is, out of all this, the maximum value is 80 megawatt. So 80 megawatt is the maximum demand on the power station. So therefore Pmax is equal to 80 megawatt. So I want to find what is the average value. So average indicates the total area by total time. So average power is called as the total area which is covered by this graph with respect to time. So I want to find what is the area. So area of this one, the area of this block is, the y-axis is 40 and x-axis is 6. So therefore 40 into 6. This is the area, 40 into 6. 40 into 6. And the area of this block is, this is the height is 50 and the width is 8 minus 2, which is 8 minus 6, which is 2. So therefore 50 into 2. So 50 into 2. This is the area of this one. And now area of this block, which is the y-axis is 60 megawatt and the x-axis is 12 minus 8, which is 4. So therefore 60 into 4. This is also we have figured out. So I want to find what is the area of this one. So this y-axis is 50 megawatt and the x-axis is 14 minus 12, which is 2. So therefore 50 into 2. So 50 into 2. And now here, this one. This height is 70 megawatt and the width is 18 minus 14, which is 4. So therefore 70 into 4. So 70 into 4. This is also finished. So now I want to find what is the area of this block. So area of this block, the y-axis is 80 megawatt and the length is, the width of this x-axis is 22 minus 18, which is 4. So 80 into 4. This is also we have completed. So now I want to find what is the area of this small block. Here 24 minus 22, which is 2, and this is 40. So 2 into 40. So 2 into 40. So now we have figured out the total area of this block. Total area of this block. So therefore now, by total time, the total time is 24 hours. So by 24. So if you solve this one, we are going to get 1360 by 24. So the load factor is equal to average power by maximum power. Average power is 1360 by 24 and the maximum power is 80 megawatt. So if you solve this one, we are going to get 0.71. So therefore the load factor is equal to 0.71. So only thing you have to remember is the load factor is the ratio of the average power by the maximum power. Average power is the area covered by this graph by the total time duration. So then we are going to get the average power. And the maximum power is how much is the maximum demand on the power station with respect to load. How much the load is consuming the maximum power from the station, which is 80 megawatt in this case. So substitute those values and we are going to get the answer. Load factor is equal to 0.71 is the correct solution of this question. So now we are going to solve the 29th question. See the question here. The power station having load factor which is 70% and capacity factor which is 50% and the used factor is 60% and the maximum demand is 20 megawatt, then annual energy production is. So based on all these values we have to find what is the energy, the annual energy production, means in a year how much of amount of energy which is produced we need to figure out. So what are the four options? Option A, 122.8 gigawatt hour is the correct solution of this question. So let's solve this numerical. So basically in this question they are told that the load factor is 70% means 0.7 and the capacity factor or plant capacity which is 50% means 0.5 and also they are given that used factor which is 60% means 0.6 and the maximum demand is 20 megawatt. So based on this we have to find what is the amount of energy consumed in a 1 year we need to figure out. So basically the load factor is the ratio of the average power by the maximum power. I have already told you the average power is nothing but it is a ratio of the area by time. So area is nothing but, just now I told you, it is the area of the graph between the power and the time. So power into time we are going to get the area. So power into time is also called as the energy. So therefore area is equal to power into time. So by time. So therefore power into time is also called as the energy. So energy by total time. So basically here we have to calculate what is the energy consumed in 1 year annually. So therefore if the energy consumed in 1 year means the time is also 1 year. So therefore energy consumed in 1 year I am going to assume it is E and also the time in 1 year let me assume it is T. So therefore here finally I am going to substitute load factor is equal to average power is nothing but energy by time. So energy by time and there is a P max. So P max. I want the energy in 1 year. So E is equal to load factor into time in 1 year into P max. So load factor is also we have already known which is 0.7 and the time in 1 year. So 1 year is nothing but 365 days. So 1 day is again 24 hours. So therefore 365 into 24. So time is 365 days and 1 day is 24 hours into P max is 20 megawatt. So if you solve this one we are going to get 365 into 24 is nothing but 8760. If you do all the simplification we are going to get 122640 megawatt hour. So therefore the amount of energy consumed or generated by the generator which is 122640 megawatt hour, but I want to convert it in terms of gigawatt. So therefore this is what I am going to get, because 1 megawatt is 10 to the power of 6 and 1 giga is nothing but 10 to the power of 9. So in this is the correct solution of this question in terms of the gigawatt hour. Now we are going to solve the last question of this lecture. See the question here. The Rankine cycle efficiency of steam power plant is. So basically in the steam power plant there is a Rankine efficiency. So here the Rankine cycle efficiency, how much we need to figure out. So what are the four options? Option C, 30 to 45% is the correct solution of this question. So let's solve this numerical. So now let me discuss something about the Rankine cycle. So basically this is a process which is going to involve in the thermal power plant and also in the nuclear power plant. We are going to use this process which is called as a Rankine cycle. It is basically it was established or developed by the Scottish engineer. His name is William J.M. Rankine in the year 1859. So he is a person who has developed this model. So this model we can use it in either thermal power plant and also in the nuclear power plant. We are going to use this process. So basically it is a one small process. See carefully here, there is a boiler. So for this boiler we are going to give a cold water. So for cold water when you are going to give to the boiler, because of heat this water is going to convert into a steam and this steam is given to a steam turbine. So this steam is going to have a huge amount of velocity. So therefore this is going to hit the turbine blades. So these turbine blades are going to rotate. So because after this steam is going to go to the condenser, so it is a very heat steam, means a huge amount of temperature is there. So this condenser is going to remove the heat and the remaining thing it is going to flow through the pump. So this pump is going to again make it to a cold water. So basically here this is a small process of overall power plant, and here the steam turbine is going to rotate the generator and then we are going to get the electricity. So there is a huge process of a power plant. Out of this all this huge process, this is a small process. We say it is a Rankine cycle. So the efficiency of this Rankine cycle of one of the process of overall power plant, this process has a efficiency of only 30 to 45%. 30 to 45% is the overall efficiency of this one cycle which is called as a which is called as a Rankine cycle. So it was developed by the William J. M. Rankine in the year 1859. He was basically a Scottish engineer, and also this is not a generator is not a part of the Rankine cycle. So now if you see carefully here, this is the 30 to 45% is the Rankine cycle efficiency. And also here let me discuss some of the important points. See, for a power plant and its efficiency, so for a diesel power plant its efficiency is around 32 to 42%, and for a thermal power plant its efficiency is only 30 to 40%, and for a hydro power plant the efficiency is 80 to 85%, and for nuclear power plant its efficiency is 33 to 37%. So we can see clearly that hydro power plant has a higher efficiency when compared to remaining power plants. And also let me discuss what are the base load power plants and the peak load power plants. So base load power plants means they take huge amount of time in order to start their operation, but peak load power plants means if there is a sudden variation in the peak demand, then these power plants we can use it instantaneously. It means they can operate at instantaneously to satisfy the load demand. But here this base load power plant needs certain time to operate in order to satisfy the load demand. So that is the difference between the base load power plant and the peak load power plant. So therefore the base load power plant are the nuclear power plant, thermal power plant and the hydro power plant, whereas the peak load power plant are the gas power plant and solar power plant and wind turbine power plants and also diesel generators. See, base load power plant means it takes certain time in order to start their operation, but whereas a peak load power plant means they can operate instantaneously in order to meet the load demand. This is the difference between the base load power plant and the peak load power plant. So out of this one question they will ask definitely, so whether the thermal power plant belongs to base load power plant or the peak load power plant, like this they are going to ask. So it is basically thermal is a power plant is basically comes in the category of the base load power plant. So out of all the power plants, hydro power plant has the highest efficiency, and the Rankine cycle efficiency is a one type of a process of the overall power plant. So therefore this is basically used in the thermal power plant and also in the nuclear power plant. It has an efficiency of only 30 to 45%. So by this lecture we have successfully completed the TS Genco 2015 W solutions of 30 questions in a very detailed manner. And if you like the content of our channel, then please do like, share and subscribe our YouTube channel, and don't forget to press the bell icon button, so whenever we upload a new video the direct notifications comes to mobile. If any improvements needed in our video lectures, then please do comment in the comment section. We will definitely include all those improvements in the coming lectures. Thank you so much for watching this lecture. Keep smiling, take care and bye bye.